In Wheelock chapter 19, we are going to continue our study of the passive verbs, focusing on the perfect system or the perfect stems. We focused on the present stem, present system last chapter, and then also look at interrogative pronouns and interrogative adjectives. So let's begin with the continuation of passive voice study. What we want to learn how to do in this next chapter is to form the passive voice in the perfect system, or what I like to describe as the perfect stem. To create the perfect passive, such as saying I was praised or I have been praised, the pluperfect passive, I had been praised, and the future perfect passive, I will have been praised, the process here is actually rather simple, given what we already know. We have learned about principal parts, and what we want to do for this is to take the fourth principal part, which is known as the perfect passive participle, and we're going to add that to the forms of esse or sum, to be or I am, in the various tenses of it. You remember we've seen forms of sum in the present, the imperfect, and the future. So we're going to use one of those forms of that verb following the passive, the perfect passive participle. Now the participle is going to be nominative case, and its gender and number is going to match whatever the gender and number of the subject is. And so using laudo, laudare, laudavi, and laudatum, these are the four principal parts. So basically, we're focusing on this fourth one, using this as an example. And so we would do this with any other verb that has four principal parts. We're going to take the fourth one, and we're going to use it to create these three perfect system or perfect stem type of forms. So let's look at it here. All right. So the perfect indicative passive is going to be laudatus or ta or tum, depending on what gender the I is who's speaking, and then followed by the present tense of some. So remember, the forms of esse in the present tense are some es est, some es estis sunt. Okay. So I is a singular person. I'm going to be using one of these us, to, one, to adjective endings. What we're going to learn as we go on is that participles are verbal adjectives. We're using a participle form here, and it's going to then decline for the right gender and number, but always nominative case here in our indicative mood for passive verbs. So, I was praised. I have been praised. And I'm just going to stick with the laudatus form, but just again, if a woman were the you here, then it would be laudata s. Okay, but laudatus s would be a you were praised. Laudatus est, he, she, it was praised. Laudati sumus, we were praised, or we have been praised. Now notice that I've got the nominative plural forms of all the declension patterns in the genders, right? So masculine plural, feminine plural, neuter plural here for nominative. We don't say we were praised and use a singular form of were praised here. All right, so laudati estis, you or y'all were praised or have been praised, and then laudati sunt, they were praised or have been praised. Now to form the future perfect passive, what we're going to do is use future forms of sum, ero, eris, erit, erimus, eritis, erunt, if you remember those future forms, but with laudatus forms, the fourth principal part before. So laudatus ero is I will have been praised. Laudatus eris, you will have been praised. Laudatus erit, he, she, it will have been praised. Laudati, again, switching to the plural forms with these plural forms of to be. Erimus, we will have been praised. Laudati eritis, y'all will have been praised. And laudati erunt, they will have been praised. And then for pluperfect, if you remember, we're using the past perfect uh, English conjugation, had done something, but it's going to be passive now. So had been blanked, and in this case with laudatus, praised. So laudatus eram, and here we're using the imperfect of to be, eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratis, erant, and then the forms of laudatus in the appropriate gender and number. So, laudatus eram, I had been praised. Laudatus eras, you had been praised. Laudatus erat, he had been praised. Laudati eramus, we had been praised. Laudati eratis, you all will have been had been praised. And then laudati erant, they had been praised. Now we need to have a warning here. Please beware when you see the perfect passive participle, the fourth principal part, along with a form of sum or esse, you need to treat them as a unit, creating a meaningful tense. And so you cannot translate each part separately, where you translate sum as if it were present, and then the participle as if it were just be blanked. All right? Or if you do that, you're going to mistranslate the verb form. So let me just walk through the three. It might be very tempting when you see laudata sum, for example, to take the sum and say, that's the present of esse, I am. And so this must mean I am praised. Okay, that's not the way to translate this because we already have a verb form, laudor, which means I am praised or I am being praised, right? The present passive indicative, there's already a form for that. But rather, laudata sum is I was praised or I have been praised. So one way to think about this, if this might help you at least make the adjustment, because this might be a bit difficult at first, is to think of the perfect passive participle as having the sense of having been praised. And then if you slip up and you translate sum as I am, but you translate the participle as having been praised, then you might understand it in this way. Then I am in a state of having been praised. And if I'm presently in a state of having been praised, then that means that I was praised or I have been praised by someone, you see. And then to see laudatus eram, you might look at that and go, that's the imperfect. That means I was praised, but I was praised is picked up by the imperfect passive laudabar. So we need to make sure we translate this properly. It's I had been praised, or I was in a state of having been praised before I was in that state, which means I had been praised. And then laudatas ero, this is future. You might be tempted to translate that as I will be praised, but that's not what that means because we have a future passive laudebor, which means that. But we need to translate this as I will have been praised. So we need to be careful with these translations. Now, let's take a quick look at some examples from the textbook that Wheelock provides. We have puella laudata est, the girl, and then if you see est, but a perfect passive participle here, you need to make sure that you resist translating this as is. Laudata est is was praised or has been praised. So the girl has been praised. Okay. Notice that this is feminine singular in its gender, laudata, not laudatus, because puella is feminine singular, and they're both nominative. Subject's always nominative, and in effect, the participle is functioning as a predicate nominative, and that's why it's nominative as well. Next, we have puellae laudatae errant. And you can say these with me as I pronounce them. That'd be very helpful for you. Puellae laudatae errant. Now, the girls had been praised. Look at what I have. Errant looks like the imperfect of be. It is. You might want to translate that as the girls were praised. But remember, together these form a unit with that sense of pluperfect semantics. The girls had been praised. Puellae laudatae erunt. Here we have erunt, not errant. That's future. But with the perfect passive participle, it becomes the future perfect tense. So the girls will have been praised. All right. Now, in both of these, the laudatae forms are feminine plural nominative because puellae is feminine plural and nominative as well. And then this last one, I think there's a few more in the textbook, but I just wanted to give you a handful of these to point out what we've learned here. Pueri moneti sunt. So the boys, sunt is present, you might translate that as are and then warned. But remember, anytime I have a perfect passive participle with the form of to be, then I need to translate those together as a perfect tense type of action or state. And in this situation, the present with the uh, passive participle is the perfect passive. So I'm going to translate that as the boys have been or were warned. All right. Okay. So this thankfully is not too difficult, and this strategy for creating the passive forms in the perfect tenses in the perfect system, this is applied for all the conjugations. All of them have fourth principle parts. You use them with the appropriate tense of the verb somer esse. Now, let's look at the second major section of the chapter, which has to do with the interrogative pronoun. In English, our interrogative pronouns are who, whom, whose, and what. And when the interrogative word who or what functions as a noun or pronoun, it will have a gender or number based on what it stands for, and the case will be determined by its function in the sentence. So, just to look at some English examples here, um, here the word who and who died is functioning as the subject of the verb, right? And so you can tell that it's taking the function of a noun, and that's what I mean when I say the interrogative pronoun functions as a noun or pronoun. I could actually put a noun or a pronoun in the place where the interrogative pronoun occurs. So I could say something like, John died. That would be a noun filling that slot. Or I could say he died. That would be a pronoun filling that slot. But in this case, my interrogative word is filling that noun slot, and it's the subject. Okay, so who died? Question. I'm wondering who actually died. Okay, in the second sentence, whom did Caesar kill? Caesar's the subject. Did kill together forms the verb, and then whom is my direct object. All right. So that interrogative pronoun is functioning in the place where a noun or a pronoun would have gone. What killed him? Here, my verb is killed. Him is the direct object. What is not the direct object. It is the subject. I know something killed him. What I want to know is the identity of that thing. What did it? Right. And so again, it's filling a noun or a pronoun function here. It's the subject. And then what did he see? He is the subject. Did see is the verb. And what is the direct object? He saw something. What? And there that interrogative pronoun is filling that noun slot that a noun or pronoun could fill. I could say he did see Billy. He did see him. But here I'm questioning what he saw. What did he see? Now, as far as the forms of the interrogative pronoun in Latin, there is good news. Good news. For the most part, the interrogative pronoun is identical to the relative pronoun, except in two respects. The masculine and feminine singular for the interrogative pronoun, the masculine and feminine singular forms will share the same form. That is, they are both going to use the masculine form. And then, secondly, the nominative singular forms are quis and quid. So we have quis as masculine feminine form, quid as neuter, rather than qui, qui, quad, which is what the three lexical forms are for the relative pronoun. And what I've done here is below, I've given you a chart of the interrogative pronouns, and on the side, the relative pronouns that you already know and love from the prior chapters. And as it turns out, we're going to see the interrogative adjective, more coming, is identical to the relative pronoun. So over here on the right, I actually have both relative pronoun and interrogative adjective. On the left, I've got the interrogative pronoun. And so what I want you to do is to see just how similar they are. With our relative pronoun, we had qui, qui, quad, but over here we had quis and quid. Now this is really where the biggest distinction is, right? So quis and quid versus qui, qui, quad. The neuter form is quid versus quad, which is what you've learned for the relative pronoun. The masculine and feminine relative pronouns qui and qui are here as the interrogative pronoun quis, quis. All right. Now, almost everything else is exactly the same as the relative pronoun. The one thing that's different here is that because the neuters are always the same in the nominative and the accusative, if I start with quid for the nominative, that's going to also have to show up in the accusative slot. Whereas over here, in the relative pronoun, I start with quad, then I'm going to have quad in the accusative. So these are the places where we have distinctions. And of course, there are no purely feminine forms for the interrogative pronoun. We're using the masculine ones. But take a look now. After the quis, I have quius, qui, quem, and quo, and that matches all of the masculine forms here, right? Aside from qui, quius, qui, quem, quo. And then none of these are used over here in this because the feminine form is taking on the same forms as the masculine. Okay, so this is good news. So what I want to do here is just talk real quickly about how I would translate these as interrogative pronouns. Quis and quid would be who or what, depending on the gender. Quius quius, of whom or of what. Of what do you speak? Qui and qui, to whom or to what. Quem and quid, whom or what, as questions. Whom did he kill? What did he eat? Quo and quo, ablative singular, by whom or from whom, something like that, right? Or by what. And then for our nominative and in plural forms, and notice we get 3 columns again because it's only in the singular that masculine and feminine coalesce and use the masculine forms for both genders. In the plural, they stay separate. Qui, quai, quai, quorum, 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 quorum. So who or what, of whom or what, quibus, 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 to whom, to what, quos, quas, quai, whom or what, and quibus, 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 by whom or by what. These are exactly the same as the plural relative pronoun. So thankfully, we don't really have to learn new forms except for just these 3. And 2 of them happen to be the same. Now let's look at the interrogative adjective here. These are interrogatives that ask what, which, or what kind of person or thing is involved in the sentence. Sometimes the interrogative adjective can be used in an exclamatory way as well. And so I'll give you some examples of both of those sorts of uses. So here we're asking real questions in the top line and making exclamatory statements in the second line. What, which died. Notice that the interrogative what is accompanying a noun here. It's not what died, but what which died. And so I've got this form of what that is asking for specifying information, identifying information about the which, and there's a noun that it accompanies. What soldier did Caesar kill? Here, there's a soldier that Caesar killed. What I'm wondering is which or what soldier it was. So again, the interrogative here is not functioning like a noun. We actually have a noun in these. The which is the noun that died. What I want to know is what which was it who died. Here, Caesar killed a soldier. The soldier is the noun that was the direct object. What the what is doing is it's questioning which or what soldier it was that Caesar killed. So these interrogatives are adjectival in their function. They're not functioning as nouns or pronouns here. Okay, and then in what war did he die? Again, war is the object of the preposition in, and what is the adjective that's trying to identify the noun. We know there's a war. He died in the war, but which war did he die in? Now, in the second line, we have exclamatory uses of what. So, what a witch you are. All right. So here is the adjective, interrogative adjective. Here's the noun it modifies. You are what a witch. Okay. Or in English, our exclamatives will always go first. What a witch you are. Okay. What soldiers Caesar has. So we know Caesar has soldiers, and I'm exclaiming what amazing soldiers they are. Here, what is an adjective? Soldiers are the noun that it modifies. And in what happy times we live. And here, what and happy are both adjectives. Times is the noun that these are modifying. So in all of these situations, the adjective what or which accompanies a noun, and whatever the noun's case, gender, number is, it will have to agree with it. And so that's what 3.1 is saying here. The interrogative adjectives are accompanied by a noun and will mirror the noun's case, gender, and number. And the good news is that they're identical in form to the relative pronouns. So here are some Latin examples. These both come from the chapter. Quod signum vides. What sign do you see? So my subject is you. I'll put that in parentheses. That's the verb. Signum is the direct object. And so it's a noun, right? And quad here is functioning as an adjective. It's an interrogative adjective. I'm not asking, what do you see? I'm asking, what sign do you see? And so there has to be an overt noun that the adjective agrees with in case, gender, number. Signum is neuter, singular, and as the object of the verb vides, it is accusative, and so is quad. Now, remember, nominative and accusative neuters look the same, so you could possibly parse this as nominative neuter singular as well, but because we already have a subject, vides, second singular, then quod signum cannot be the subject since you are the subject already. So this has got to be the object. What sign do you see? And then in the next one, I have quae femina consilium habet, and the translation here is what or which woman has a plan. So quae femina, femina is the noun, quae is the adjective, interrogative adjective. Notice that quae and femina are both nominative, feminine singular. Why? Because they are, the subjects of the verb here, habet, what woman has, and consilium is the direct object. All right? So, quae femina, what woman? I want to know which woman. Now, 3.2. The bad news here is that because the interrogative pronoun, interrogative adjective, and the relative pronoun are all almost always the same, it can be difficult immediately to tell the difference between the three of them. Thankfully, the ambiguity is going to dissipate when you begin to look at the actual grammar of the sentence. When you look at the context of the grammar and you start thinking about the meaning of what you're reading, a lot of times that ambiguity is just gonna melt away. So let me give you some helps here real quickly for distinguishing, and I have a typo. There should be an H in there, for distinguishing the three. Let's start with interrogative pronouns first. Okay, what do interrogative pronouns do? This is going to help you to think through the grammar of the clause you're looking at. These function as a noun, as we mentioned, and they're used to ask a question about the identity of someone or something. And as an interrogative pronoun, there won't be an antecedent. With interrogative adjectives, we have these that function as an adjective now before a noun, and therefore they co-occur with the noun in the same case, gender, number, and they function to ask for a more specific identification of someone or something. So I need to delete that too. It has no antecedent either, because only pronouns have antecedents, and here the interrogative adjective is not functioning as a pronoun at all. It's functioning as an adjective. Third, relative pronouns, they do something rather different than the interrogative pronoun and adjectives do. These introduce embedded or dependent clause into a main or an independent clause. So I'm going to always have two clauses when I have a relative pronoun. I'll have the main clause, and then the relative pronoun will introduce a subordinate dependent relative clause that's tucked away inside of it. So there's going to be two verbs, two subjects, two objects if they have objects, and that sort of thing. All right? Now, another thing about relative pronouns is that they will have a head or an antecedent. Sometimes that head is missing. Most of the time it's present. And if it's missing, you should be able to recover what the implied head of the relative clause is. And then that relative clause will modify adjectivally the head. Now, really important, relative pronouns are not used for asking questions. Okay, so when we say that relative pronouns can be translated as who, which, or that, when you hear the word who, just remember that's not who the question, it's who the relative pronoun. This is the man who came. Who came is not asking a question, it's introducing a relative clause there. Now, let's look at these Wheelock examples. He's using for the verb to give, do, dare, dedi, datum. Remember, this is first, second, third, and fourth principal part. And I'm just bringing this up because we need to remember the third principal part is used for the perfect tenses, and the fourth principal part is used for the perfect tenses passive verb formation. All right, when we want to say, uh, I had been given, I have been given, I will have been given. We're going to be using a datum plus a form up to be. All right, we're going to see those here. All right, now let's take a look at the first set. These all hang together. You'll notice that dedi is used in all of these, or dedit, and that's using dedi, third principal part. So this is using the perfect stem, right? We're in perfect stem, and the it ending is third singular. So someone gave or has given. Now, here's our first question. We have quis librum tibi dedit. All right, who gave the book to you? Notice that I have a question mark here, and that is a real good signal that I'm looking at something interrogative when I see quis and not a relative pronoun. But there's another reason not to suppose that quis is a relative pronoun, and that is that quis is not a relative pronoun at all. If we go back to our list over here, notice quis doesn't show up over here on the right side. Quis only occurs here, right? So it has to be an interrogative pronoun. Interrogative adjectives are identical to relative pronouns, and since there is no quis in the relative pronoun side, it can't be an interrogative adjective either. It has to be the interrogative pronoun. So I'll just put IP here for interrogative pronoun. Now, notice that that was the nominative masculine slash feminine singular form. Okay, so we'll just go masculine singular here for a moment. And then librum tibi dedit. He gave a book, direct object, to you, indirect object. And what I'm asking is quis, that's the subject because it's nominative, who did it? Who gave the book to you? In the second example, I have vir qui librum tibi dedit te laudavit. The man who gave you the book praised you. So you can see here that I've got an English relative clause on the right. I have a relative clause here in the Latin. And so qui, you might wonder, is that an interrogative? Well, there's no question mark here at the end of this. That's one clue, right? And then secondly, notice that I have a noun in front of qui that it matches in case, gender, number. Actually, it matches in gender and number. It doesn't have to match in case. It happens to here, but qui is masculine singular, right? And among my forms, qui is only going to be the relative pronoun. The antecedent or head is man, and it's nominative because it's the subject of this relative clause. There is dedit, the man who gave the book to you, right? And what about that man? He's the subject, he's nominative, he praised you. All right, so the man praised you. Which man? The man who gave you the book. So relative clauses are adjectival. Here it's modifying the noun wieder. And then our last example, quem librum tibi dedit. Which book did he give to you? So notice that I have librum, which is a noun, and it's accusative, masculine singular. And then quem, that is accusative, masculine singular as well. This looks like a relative, it looks like a relative pronoun. It also looks like an interrogative pronoun and an interrogative adjective. But notice it's in front of a noun, it accompanies a noun, and it agrees in case, gender, number. This looks like the interrogative adjective. I know it's not the relative pronoun because it doesn't come after a head or antecedent either, right? And a librum is the subject of the verb dedit. So, I'm sorry, it's the object of the verb dedit. So, what we have going on here is that the subject is a he, a third singular he. He gave to you, indirect object, a book, and the question is asking which book. He gave to you which book, or which book did he give to you? All right, so this is interrogative adjective here. Now, let's look at the second set. Here we're using quius. Quius is genitive, masculine, singular. Okay? All these forms are genitive, masculine, singular. But what we want to do is identify whether they're the interrogative pronoun, adjective, or the relative pronoun. Quius librum cicero tibi dedit. Whose book did Cicero give to you? Notice here I have a question mark that clues us in that this is either an interrogative pronoun or adjective. They are identical in the situation. Here's another question. Quius libri fuit cicero auctor. Right, so there's quius as well. And so how do I tell which of these is the interrogative pronoun versus the interrogative adjective? Well, the interrogative adjective will always go with the noun and agree with it in case, gender, and number. We've said that quius was genitive singular. Look at librum. That is not genitive singular, is it? That ending is accusative, masculine singular, but libri over here, that is genitive, masculine singular, isn't it? So in this case, we have a match of both of these. So this one is the adjective, it's the interrogative adjective, and this one is the interrogative pronoun. All right. So basically, we go back to the sentence. We have Caesar, subject, tibi, indirect object, gave, verb. Caesar gave to you. Librum is accusative direct object, gave you the book. And then quius is a pronoun asking of whom. Caesar gave you the book of whom, or whose book did Caesar give to you? There we have the pronoun use. In the second one, Cicero, I'm saying Caesar, Cicero, fuit, there's our verb, auctor, that's my subject complement or predicate nominative. Cicero was, I always talk about Caesar, so that's why. Cicero was the author at Libri of the book, and then what I want to know is which book. Cicero was the author of which book, or of which book was Cicero the author. So this is an interrogative adjective matching the noun. And then in my last example, vir quies librum Cicero tibi dedit te laudavit. So the man, quies librum, there's genitive, right? Librum is accusative. So I know that this isn't an interrogative adjective because these don't match each other. I don't have a question mark here, so that's also a clue. This is very likely a relative pronoun. My question then is, does it match the possible antecedent or head and gender and number? Well, we've mentioned that this is genitive masculine singular, right? So masculine singular matches wir. But it's genitive, not because wir is genitive. Relative pronouns don't have to match the case of their head. It's genitive because it's in a genitive relationship with librum. It's the book of whom, right? The book of whom. So, how do I want to bracket this out? Well, we always want to get our relative clause bracketed out with the relative pronoun, and then we can go to the end here, and we'll see that man is the subject of laudavit, and te is its object. The man praised you. Which man? The man whose book? The book of whom Cicero gave you, or the man whose book Cicero gave you. Okay, that's a relative pronoun. Okay, real quickly, let's look at these last examples. Qui amico librum dedisti. So here is dedi, but we're adding the ist ending here so this is second singular in the perfect tense. Okay, so you gave, or you did give. Look at what we have now. We have qui in all of these examples, qui, right? So it happens to be the case that all the forms are the same, but one's a relative pronoun, one's an interrogative pronoun, one's an interrogative adjective. How do I tell the difference? Well, wherever I see the question marks, I know I've got interrogatives. So these first two have to be interrogative pronoun or adjective. Which one of them accompanies a noun and agrees with it in case, gender, number? Qui, as we have seen, is dative, a singular and masculine. So dedisti is you gave. Librum, a book. That's my direct object here. And we'll look at amico here. That is looks like dative singular, right? So that's going to be an indirect object. And then I have qui. So what is that doing here? We've said that that's dative singular masculine. Amico is dative singular masculine or masculine singular as well. So what's going on here? It looks like this interrogative is functioning as an adjective right next to the noun amico. They both share the same case, gender, and number. And so this is asking which friend did you give the book to? To which friend did you give the book? So it's questioning the identification of the friend. Now in the second one, it's qui librum cicero dedit, and we've got our third singular form here, and so cicero looks like it could be the subject. There's the verb. Librum is the direct object. So Cicero gave the book, and then qui is dative, right? So it doesn't match Librum's case because that's accusative, masculine singular. So this looks like it is functioning as a pronoun in the dative case for indirect object. Therefore, it is the interrogative pronoun, not the interrogative adjective, right? So Cicero gave the book to whom, or to whom did Cicero give the book? And then this last one is virqui cicero librum dedit te laudavit. So again, we have our subject, we have our verb, we have our direct object, and then embedded in that sentence, the man praised you, we have a relative clause, it looks like, where qui, being masculine singular, matches gender number with vir, which is masculine singular, but it's dative. Why? Because it's functioning as the indirect object of the verb dedit. The man, Cicero, gave the book to whom, right? Or the man to whom Cicero gave the book praised you. So clearly a relative pronoun here. And then in this next example, quid dedit. Here we're using the neuter form. Dedit is he gave. And the question is quid here the interrogative pronoun, interrogative adjective, or relative pronoun? Well, it's got a question mark here, so clearly it's going to be interrogative. It does not have an antecedent either, right? So, and notice that there's no noun that quid accompanies. Doesn't occur with the noun at all. So it's not agreeing with any noun in case, gender, number. So this is clearly an interrogative pronoun, and it's functioning presumably as either the subject or the object of dedit, gave, because that's third singular. I could say what gave. That's possible, okay? But then I don't have an object, and so that doesn't make very much sense. So I'm going to suppose that my subject is actually some other third person entity, he, and quid then becomes the direct object. He gave what, or what did he give? And that makes better sense. Now in the next one, I have quad premium dedit. Here, premium is a neuter, and there is my genitive singular form. So what reward? Notice quad is nominative or accusative, neuter singular. Premium, as a neuter noun, could be either one as well. But so notice then that these two actually have the same form. And the quad form versus the quid form. The quid is always interrogative pronoun anyway. Quod could be interrogative, adjective, or relative pronoun. There's no antecedent here, and it occurs right next to a noun that it agrees with in case, gender, number. So this is looking like it's an adjective modifying a noun. And so he gave a reward, and the quad is asking what reward. So what reward did he give? Or he gave what reward? Okay, so interrogative adjective. And then premium quod debet erat magnum. So here we have the prize or the reward was great. So it looks like I have a subject, a verb, and my subject complement or my predicate nominative. And then here quod dedit looks like a relative clause. Now quad could have been an interrogative adjective as well, but notice that here I've got two verbs, erat and dedit, so I've got two clauses, and to have a relative pronoun, I need a relative clause embedded in a larger main clause. So this is fitting the profile for that. Quad is neuter singular, premium is neuter singular, so we have a match to an antecedent or a head. And then it's either nominative or accusative, because quad could be either being neuter singular. But here it looks like it's probably accusative because it's the direct object of dedit. The prize which he gave was great. And then we have our last example here, a quo premium datum est. So here we have datum est as our form of the perfect passive indicative. I've got a present tense form of be in the third singular with datum. So remember, we're not going to want to translate this as is given, but was or has been given. Now the question is, what is the subject? And a premium is it could be a nominative or accusative, neuter singular, right? Both of those are possible. If I go with nominative, then it could be the subject, and then it would be a prize or a reward was given, and then the a quo is asking a question about the identity of the person to whom it was given, or by whom. By whom was the reward given? All right. So here quo is clearly an interrogative pronoun because as a pronoun, it's the object of the preposition and it's filling a noun slot here. By whom was the reward given? Now over here in the second one, we have vir aquo premium datum est te laudavit. Now again, in all of these situations, we have a clause with the verb to be and datum embedded inside of another clause, vir laudavit te. The man praised you. Which man? The man by whom the reward was given. So here the quo is clearly a relative pronoun. It is ablative and it is masculine singular. Vir is masculine singular, head or antecedent. We have a match there. Why is it ablative? It's ablative because it's the object of the preposition a. So the man by whom the prize was given praised you. And then quo praemio ille motus est. Okay, so I have praemio and quo. These look very much like they're the same case, don't they? This is looking like ablative, masculine, and singular here. And then notice that the quo is agreeing with that noun in case, gender, and number. It's ablative, masculine, and singular. So this seems to be having, as praemio is a noun, this seems to be having an adjective function. And since it's in a question, this is an interrogative. It's not a relative pronoun because there's no antecedent before. So it's that ille, that is masculine singular, nominative, that man, that one, as a motus est, was motivated. Quo premio, remember we're going to translate the ablative here. This is an ablative of means. By what reward? By what reward was that man motivated? All right, so hopefully walking through this helps you to see that you can tell the difference between the relative pronouns that we've already learned and then these new interrogative pronouns and adjectives.